The Commonwealth would call Rose Stoffers.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. All right, Attorney Buckingham, please.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please tell the jurors your first and last name?
Rose Stoffers.
Could you spell your last name for the record?
Stoffers.
And what do you do for work?
I'm a sergeant on the state police in the crime scene services section.
And how long have you worked for the state police?
Since January of 2019.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the crime scene services section is of the Massachusetts State Police?
Sure. So we get called to all different kinds of crime scenes. Our main job is to document the scenes with photos and videos. We can also process evidence on scene, or we collect evidence and bring it back to our lab and we process it there. We're processing for fingerprints, and then we do fingerprint analysis, try to identify any fingerprints we find on the evidence.
And fair to say the state police crime scene services have labs across the state, right?
Correct.
And what office do you work at?
Right now I work out of the Boston office.
Going back to 2023, were you working out of the Lakeville office?
Yes.
And so fair to say that the troopers that are out of that Lakeville office do respond to a lot of scenes here in Plymouth County?
Correct.
I'm going to draw your attention to January 24th, 2023. Do you recall being called out to the South Shore Hospital in Weymouth on that night?
Yes.
And do you recall approximately what time you arrived there?
I arrived at about 8:35 p.m.
Were you by yourself or were you with anyone else from the unit?
I was by myself. I met then Trooper Lawler there. He's from the Plymouth Detective Unit. And I also met the forensic scientist there.
And can you explain to the jurors a little bit about that relationship that you as a trooper have with forensic scientists that work for the lab?
The forensic scientists are civilians who work for the lab, but they will come out to scenes as well. They do mostly testing of like biological evidence that we don't do. So we work closely with them both at scenes, and they share our office in Lakeville.
And fair to say that they're actually part of a different unit with the State Police Crime Lab called the Crime Scene Response Unit.
Correct.
But oftentimes is it the case that when you're responding to serious crime scenes like this one, that you're working in tandem with a forensic scientist from that unit?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so in this circumstance, you indicated that Maureen Hartnett also was at the South Shore Hospital with you?
Yes.
When you got to the South Shore Hospital, what was the purpose for you being called out there? What were you asked to do?
So my instructions were to document the defendant, any injuries that she had. Forensic scientist Hartnett was going to be taking swabs, and anytime they take swabs, we have to document the areas in which they swab.
So when you got to the South Shore Hospital, do you remember where you went in the hospital?
Yeah, I went to one of the trauma rooms in the emergency department.
Okay. And so were you able to make observations of Lindsay Clancy?
Yes.
And do you see Lindsay Clancy in the courtroom?
Yes.
All right. Record may reflect the identification.
Thank you. What were your observations of her when you saw her?
She was covered in like blankets and like heating devices, and she had a neck collar on. So when I first walked in the room, I couldn't see anything on her body because she was under the blanket other than like the neck brace and her face.
May I approach? Is that a fair and accurate representation of how you observed Lindsay Clancy?
Yes.
Any objection?
I have no objection to any of the photographs.
That may be admitted.
Just showing you now it's been marked as Exhibit 140. Can you see that from where you're sitting?
Yes.
And so this blanket, that's how you observed her in the trauma room?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, did you and other medical staff remove the blanket to document injuries?
We didn't remove the blanket, but we did remove her arms out from underneath the blanket.
Okay. And so were you able to do that on your own, or did you need assistance?
I needed assistance.
And why did you need assistance?
When I first attempted to pull out her right arm, she was uncooperative and pulling it back and fighting against us a little.
So did you enlist the help of the nurses to help you to remove her arm from the blanket?
Yes.
Were you able to make any observations of kind of the temperature in the room at the time that you got in there?
Yes, it was very hot in the room.
Okay. And that blanket that you observed, were you aware that blanket was to kind of bring her body temperature up?
Yes.
When you were able to view her arms, when you first saw them, did they have anything on them?
There was a red-brown stain on her hands, and there was gauze on like her wrist area.
Did you enlist the help of the medical staff to remove the gauze?
Yes.
And why was that?
To document any injuries that might have been underneath.
And were you able to observe injuries?
Yes.
In addition to, well, strike that, the injuries that you observed or the areas of the body that you documented, what were they?
I documented, I took that first overall photo of her. I took a close-up of her face and the neck area that I could see. I documented both her hands, both sides of them, her wrist area underneath where the gauze was, and then the nurses assisted in opening up the neck brace, and I took photos of her neck as well.
Okay. And in addition to documenting the defendant herself, did you document any other items that were at the South Shore Hospital that evening?
Yes, I documented any personal belongings that were brought in with her.
And so you're aware that they removed clothing from her?
Yes.
And so you documented the clothing?
Correct.
And that she had 2 rings?
Yes.
And that you photographed those rings?
Yes.
And you're aware Trooper Lawler had retained those items?
I'm not sure who retained them from there.
Okay. But your role was just to document them?
Correct. I didn't take anything.
Okay. In regards to this particular case, well, go back for 1 second. In the crime lab, how does your unit or how do you identify particular cases that you work on?
As in like being called out to something?
Well, is there a way that you, once you get called out to a case and do work on a case, is there a way to track what you did with each case by some sort of case number or lab number?
Yes, we have a case number associated with it.
And as far as lab numbers go, you're aware that the crime lab follows pieces of evidence using the same lab number?
Yes, that's correct.
And does that track items that go through your system?
Yes. So our lab number goes into a computer system and it tracks everything. It keeps every report written on that case. It tracks the custody logs. It tracks every piece of evidence that's been involved in the case.
If it helps you, there's no issue as to chain of custody or foundation or anything like that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Other than going out to the South Shore Hospital on January 24th, do you recall being called out to another location later in relation to the same lab number?
Yes.
And that would have been on January 6th, 2023?
February 6th.
Or, excuse me, February 6th, thank you. So where did you go?
I was called to the Plymouth Detective Unit's office in Brockton.
And did you meet or speak with one of the troopers from that office?
Yes, I did. Trooper Rabbit.
Trooper Rabbit. And what did he ask you to do on that day?
He asked me to photograph a bag of medication and some documents that were inside that bag that had been brought to their office.
Okay. And did you do anything else with the items that Trooper Rabbit had in his possession on February 6th?
No, I just photographed them and left them with them.
Okay. And again, is that something that your unit sometimes is called out to do?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further.
Attorney Reddington?
So, is it trooper or are you a chemist or?
Sergeant.
Sergeant, sorry. Sergeant, you had a search warrant apparently when you went into the house, I guess, with Trooper Rabbit?
I didn't go into the house.
Oh, so he just gave you the bag. In other words, you didn't go in the house and take pictures of any of the rooms or anything like that?
No, the bag was at their office when I went to their office.
Oh, okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Anything further, Attorney Buckingham?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Court's now in session. Be seated, please.
We return back to the trial of Commonwealth versus Lindsay Clancy. All parties are present, including the defendant and including the 18 jurors.
All right, thank you. Call your next witness, please.
Call Rochelle Amity.